They have no idea where we are, who we are, where we're coming from, or who we are, where we're coming from, or who we are, where we're coming from, or who we are, where we're coming from. And this is the best of the best. Wow. That is football.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Chop Shop. I'm your host, Ronnie Evans. I'm joined, as always, by Jeff DiMatteo, and we've got Jorge Edwards from Fantasy and Frames. He was a top 20 guy in IDP last year on Fantasy Pros, as a rising star in the fantasy industry. And we're going to talk today a lot about second-year breakout players from last year's class, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of these rookies that we think are going to hit year one. So how you doing, Jorge? I'll get to you in a second, Jeff.
Rising star. That's probably like the most humbling thing I've heard ever. I don't know how accurate it is, but I will take the compliment. Thank you very much. I am thrilled to be here. The moment you said, hey, you got a spot open for tonight, I'm like, yes, I wanted to be on the show. I want to talk shop with you guys. And all the interactions we've had on Twitter has just been fantastic. And I'm really glad to meet both of you.
Well, it's great to have you on, man. And talking shop is the name of the game here at the Chop Shop. This is Gridiron Ratings kind of general show where Jeff and I try and cover pretty much everything in the industry. But this time of the year, the focus is mostly Dynasty. We did a lot of draft coverage. We had Jordan Vanek from 4for4 on for a little while. He also works with CBS. And now that we're in like the core of the dead period of the offseason, it's rookie draft time. And if you're in Dynasty leagues, it's like, who can I go buy from last year's class? So that's what we're hoping to break down for everyone and give you all info on. Jeff's been working on some projections over the last week or so. How are you doing with all that, Jeff?
It's a brain-melting experience. I have a little bit of my sanity left. We are approaching the halfway point of being completely done with all projections, offense and defense. So pretty excited about that. When the first run gets done, usually we're good to go. We can feel pretty good about how we're going to, rank players and draft players moving forward. A couple injuries and hiccups might throw things off, but man, this first run is just, it's a mind melter.
Yeah. Well, I don't do projections. So
it's tough, especially the IDP projections. Oh, those get really hairy. So more power to you, Jeff. More power to you.
Appreciate it. We're going to have some really cool stuff out this year. Actually, we're going to do a couple things that I don't think anyone's really seen before in IDP in terms of more of an analytical approach and having more dedicated fantasy stats from an analytics standpoint, as opposed to just saying, oh, well, here's snap counts. Okay, snap counts matter. Here are your green dot guys. Like there's a lot of things that kind of everybody does, right? We have to.
Right.
Sure. But we're going to be taking a much deeper dive into how players are scoring their points and how frequently you can count on those points, whether it be on a per stat basis, per game basis, per alignment basis. So if you think a team is looking to win or lose in a given week, it could impact your IDP player, right? So all of that's now being factored in. One day we're going to have IDP DFS, and I can't wait to hit that Millie Maker.
It's going to be awesome. And Ryan Sitzman, who hopefully we can get on the show here pretty soon, started doing some IDP DFS prop betting last year, and he was hitting like 84% on the year on his prop bets, which was insane. And I never dove in, but I think this year, for all you that are watching, Gridiron Ratings, Fantasy and Frames, we all do really good IDP content, but that's a sneaky little thing. Go check out him on the IDP Guru and just steal his takes each week and just
Well, you put out such great content every single year. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I love a lot of the stuff, especially the home stat crew stuff, because it's sneaky numbers. It's something that it's a free piece you can get there. And we're giving them a ton of free publicity right now, but for the free people that are watching live. And, I love the home stat crew because it's a great way to split up the group, right? You're looking at a tier and it's like, well, I've got these three guys. Well, one of them plays for Buffalo and, Buffalo offers up more points when they're at home than anybody else. I better get that guy in my lineup. So pretty cool stuff.
Well, and that's the fun thing about IDP. And before we jump in a little bit into just a general, let's get some thoughts on IDP, because there's a lot of people that are probably debating whether to get into IDP leagues this offseason. We can take a few minutes on that. Before that, we've got Jorge here. Later in the offseason, we're going to have Nate from Fantasy and Frames as well. It sounds like we might be hopping on y'all's shows as well a little bit too. And so we'll be doing everything together, which will be really fun. And then on this show in particular, the Chop Pod, we've got Nathan Janke from PFS is going to be on in a little while. Gary Davenport's coming on mid-June. John Macri from PFF is coming on mid-June. We got John Lobb from Sports Illustrated will be on in a little while. So definitely, I know it's cliche, but like subscribe. Hit the subscribe button, give it a like, and then stay tuned because we're going to have a plethora of like the best names in the industry like Jorge here and Jeff and not really myself, but I pretend. Hop in.
Ronnie and I are cool, but all the guests are way cooler. So we've got way cooler guests in here. So it's
Jorge, real quick, Fantasy and Frames. What's the Twitter breakdown? What are the links? Do a little plug for you guys.
Sure. So if you're on Twitter, which I think most of you in the fantasy football community are, head over to @FantasyInFrames. You can find us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. We have 4 different dedicated podcasts to different areas of fantasy football: Redraft, Dynasty, IDP, and DFS. We've been going strong since 2017, putting out article content and podcast content. We've grown our team. We have international members of our team jumping in here with our content. So we're really excited. Our DFS pod, our Dynasty pod, that's really taken off. Dynasty 365, which is coming out Tuesdays, 8:30 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, is just really doing a lot of great stuff there. So go over and check that out. Subscribe to us. And then, we cover a wide gamut of things. This time of year, we're getting ready for announcing our charity tournament that we do every year, which is a offense and IDP charity tournament that we try to appeal to the masses with. And it's been getting a lot of praise. And so we like what we do there. And so it's going to be fun to get that ball rolling because, as I'm wearing my Scott Fishbowl shirt, everyone knows that this is the time of year where those invites are going out and people are tweeting like, I'm so honored, and as they should be, because this is a great, thing. So we're excited about that. And then before you know it, we're going to get into redraft season. We're going to be at the Fantasy Football Expo, like we were last year and year before. So it's a lot of good stuff going on at Fantasy and Frames. And we're always there to help you all out, whatever type of fantasy football you want to talk about.
Excellent. Well, I love y'all's content.
Thank you very much.
It was new to me as of last year. I had a bit of a hiatus from diving in on all the different fantasy community stuff for a few years.
Yeah.
This place is
there's a lot. Awesome. There's a lot out there.
Yes, and it's difficult to kind of dissect who to pay attention to and who not to. But you guys put out continuously good content, so I encourage everyone to check Fantasy and Frames out as well. And then also one last note: I just threw a comment in the live chat to the Reddit thread. We have worked a little bit with the Dynasty subreddit over the last few weeks. You can hear my housemate down there coughing, maybe. But if you want to go in and ask us some questions, I've got a live thread going on over there. We've already got a few players that people have asked about that we'll cover. So hop in, comment on here as well. And we gave away an Aaron Donald jersey, or we tried to.
Was it claimed? Did our winner
Aaron C. And I put it in a video. And we talked about it, and you can't message people on YouTube. So, Aaron, if you don't watch this show and hit us up on Twitter in the next 5 days, we're giving it away to someone else. I'm not waiting.
My name is Aaron C. I don't know if you knew that or not, but just throwing it out there.
We've got some other stuff we're going to do. We have some other giveaways we've got lined up here. We've got a DeAndre Swift jersey back here. We've got a Darius Leonard football. We've got a Isaiah Simmons mini helmet. We're going to grab a couple more jerseys. I'm working on maybe getting a TJ Watt something or other, maybe a jersey. We'll see. Trying to get some cool stuff here, but it's just a matter of, if no one wants to claim the giveaway, then I don't want to get the stuff to give away because I'm just going to it's going to be sitting in a pile back here.
What are you going to do? You can give it to me, man.
Just sitting in a pile behind my desk. What are we doing?
What you're doing is putting those in those beautiful frames you got there behind you and putting them all in your sports cave. Yep.
That's right.
Yeah.
I could do that too.
So if we are looking at the shop in general today, second year breakouts, first year rookies that we think are going to hit hard. And then also I wanted to really quick just take 2 minutes and each of us, let's just give a little take for people that are looking at IDP because I know the Dynasty subreddit's mostly offense. And a lot of people are scared of IDP, and we've talked about that a lot this offseason off air. But I'll start, and I will just say I started playing IDP about a decade ago, and it has changed like my appreciation for football, like real football. Because now when I watch games, I'm not like checking out when my players aren't on offense. I'm looking at everyone. It makes you learn the game, and innately you will begin to understand football better than everyone else because you're paying attention to both sides of the ball, which is really helpful. And it's actually really fun, but it's not as scary as people make it out to be. People say it's really daunting because they don't know the IDP players as well. But let's face it, like we all started fantasy football at some point when we were brand new. And what'd you do? You went and looked at rankings. You picked your players based on those rankings. You didn't know what you were doing. If you're new to IDP and you don't follow it, it's just going to be like that for a year, and it's fine. And then you'll get in the groove, and it's the most rewarding way to play fantasy, in my opinion. But you guys have any? What about you, Jeff? Like, what would your selling point to be to somebody that was on the fence about playing IDP?
IDP, in a lot of ways, is actually easier than offense. And here's what it boils down to. Really, if you can just figure out who's going to collect some tackles, you're going to be doing okay. Imagine it like this. On offense, you get yards, touchdowns, receptions, right? Kind of pretty simple, pretty straightforward. On defense, your tackles are your yards. Super easy. And then all of your turnovers, your interceptions, fumbles, sacks, they're basically all touchdowns. You have more opportunities to get touchdowns on defense through all these other ways you can score. And so it's really not as complicated or as convoluted as people think. You know who the players are, right? You want to go and get your Aaron Donalds and your TJ Watts, and you want to go get Darius Leonards. You know who the players are. What are you afraid of? There's no reason to be scared. Introduce it to your league. Go small, baby step it. Put in one DL, one linebacker, one defensive back. Do some really basic balanced scoring. You're going to have a blast. You'll end up expanding in a couple of years, and you're going to love it. Just trust me, give it a shot.
Agreed. 1 second. What about you, Jorge?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with what you guys are saying. Truth be told, when I first started playing fantasy football, it was with an IDP spot on my roster. So for the longest time, I never knew what it was like to play fantasy football without an IDP spot. And so when I finally got into my first non-IDP league, I'm like, is this it? Is this all? These are all the players I have to manage? Like, what's going on here? I don't understand what's going on. Look, IDP, you know who it's daunting? You know what makes it daunting? I'll tell you what makes it daunting. The people on social media who tell you how you should be playing IDP, telling you, oh, well, if you're not playing with this many players, you're not doing it right, or they bring some negativity to IDP. And that's not what we're trying to build here. And both our brands, we're not trying to do it at all. IDP is supposed to be fun. You learn about both sides of the ball. You get fantasy points. Everybody likes fantasy points. At the end of the day, we can have all the statistics. We could have all the analytics, the game film breakdowns. At the end of the day, though, most of us, we're looking at this on Sundays. And we're looking at points, and we're seeing where this matchups and whether or not these points are going to get us a win or a loss. Yeah. And who doesn't want to cheer on another player who's helping you get those points to get your win for the week?
And I will add to that. It's so much fun when you have a defensive back on the other team, and then you might have the quarterback going against him, and he throws a pick, and you're like, no, but wait, who got the interception? There's all this. It's just every play has everything happening. It's amazing. Let's move on though, and go ahead and start talking about these second-year breakout players. You guys both Jorge did put these names into a doc for me.
Yeah.
Jeff,
sorry, I was working today. I apologize. I had to do my real job, and that's kind of got in the way of life here.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pivot from this real quick, and I'm going to go over to Reddit, and we got these 2 comments here. So let's go ahead and answer these.
I love Reddit comments.
This guy, Carillion Vane, said, I'll post it here. I'm going to show this on the stream. I'd love to hear some talk on Fields. Think he takes a step forward. He is a talent, but aside from Mooney, Monty, and Kmet, they've given him a waiver wire fodder to throw to. And if his game levels up, and then he continued on to say, can he show up or show it without the roster or with that roster? What do you guys think about Justin Fields?
You want to go?
I'll take it. Sure. I'll lead off. So I love the talent. You always bet on talent. That's kind of one of my mantras, is that you drafted the guy probably reasonably early, especially in super flex for dynasty purposes. I think he's going to be fine. At the end of the day, a quarterback to be productive really only needs 1 to 2 really strong weapons. Mooney kind of broke out last year and proved that he can be that guy, because Allen Robinson was a non-factor and wasn't even seeing number 1 coverage. So I think Mooney's the guy. We're good there. I really like Kmet as a breakout candidate, and Monty's a more than functional running back. I think the bigger concern here is, are they going to let him run? If they can let him run by the goal line, you're talking about a guy that could be a sneaky top 10, top 12 quarterback this year. Because if he goes and runs for 560, 580 and gets you 8 touchdowns, he'll do enough just by being on the field and having to throw the ball so frequently that he's going to just kind of pack up fantasy stats inherently. So I like him. I think he's going to take a step forward, new system and all that. But I have faith. I think he's going to be fine with what he's got, even though Dante Pettis isn't going to bring him very much.
No faith in the Dante Pettis? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Total sarcasm. Total sarcasm.
I'm gonna move on from that one real quick because he had one more, and I kind of agree with that. I'm not gonna add my commentary though. Let's look at also. There's a lot of Skyy Moore doubters and haters. Who are these people? Where are they? I don't know any of them. But I can't.
They'll be hiding real soon.
Yeah, I know. I can't imagine a world where he doesn't produce in his rookie year. I have him as a rookie breakout. So do I. I think that the only tricky thing with Skyy Moore is he's got other mouths to feed on that offense, and he does play a similar role to another player they already have, but he's better than that player. But anyway, Jorge, what do you think about Skyy Moore? Because Jeff and I have talked ad nauseum about him on the show.
Look, you put in such a of just receiving talent, even though you're taking away just one player in Tyreek Hill. I mean, Skyy Moore, he currently is slated to go behind Juju Smith-Schuster at the slot wide receiver position. You have a person who plays kind of like a slot position in Travis Kelce, inline tight end, who likes to go after receiving. Obviously, Travis Kelce. But my point is that the mouths to feed, are they going to be there? You got MVS coming over. I'd be more concerned, not so much for Juju, even though he has a 1-year deal, than I would be Mecole Hardman if I was on that roster, because I could see Skyy Moore potentially shifting out wide, trying to get some utilization of his speed that he does have. For dynasty purposes, I'm excited. Any piece of this Chiefs offense I can have with Patrick Mahomes as my quarterback, absolutely. For redraft, I'm not as excited until I see more. No pun intended for Skyy Moore. So those are my thoughts on Skyy Moore right there.
So we've seen Patrick Mahomes on like an intermediate weekly basis support more than one fantasy like top 12 target at a position. It's usually used to be Kelce and Tyreek, or one of Tyreek or Kelce, and then we had these Sammy Watkins weeks, right? You had a couple Marcus Robinson weeks here and there. And with Kelce on that team, this is going to look a little bit different. And Jeff and I have talked over the past couple of years about what they were missing and what they hoped Josh Gordon would be, was a reliable chain mover. And I think that Juju might slide into that role a little bit. But knowing all of that, knowing he's a rookie, knowing that he's very well rounded as a receiver, but is a little raw. He's still kind of a slot guy that can play everywhere, but he's being profiled as a slot guy because of his size, yada, yada, yada. You guys think Skyy Moore can finish as a top 32 receiver this year?
Here's the what's going to get in the way of Skyy Moore finishing top 32. It's going to be early season snaps. I don't know that he's going to see those early season targets. Now, Skyy Moore, you'd said he's a little raw. I actually think he's a really crisp route runner. I watched him, and I see a guy who does a really nice job sinking his hips, exploding out of cuts. He's, I hate the term deceptively fast for a guy who runs sub 4.5, but Skyy Moore is the kind of guy that, imagine what Elijah Moore did last year, right? He was pretty much silent until the middle towards the back half of the season. All of a sudden, he's getting 8 to 10 targets a week going nuts. I could definitely see a similar chain of events for Skyy Moore coming out here, piling up targets when MVS proves that, frankly, he's just a guy and he's not useful at all. Mecole Hardman is just a guy and he's scantily useful as a gadget player. And then Juju really should be relegated to the slot to get his best performance. And I mean, let's be honest, Travis Kelce's 32 now?
Yeah.
I don't know off the top of my head. He's up there.
So at the end of the day, Patrick Mahomes is going to need somebody, and you just wait until Skyy Moore is running those, quick comebacks on the sideline, or he's running those quick outs, or he's hitting those slant routes, or even hitting you with a 7, where he gives you kind of that post corner. look, he's going to be dirty and wide open, and Patrick Mahomes is going to find him often. And JJ's out here saying hell no. Is he on Team Skyy Moore or is he off Team Skyy Moore?
He's saying hell no that he wouldn't finish as a top 30 wide receiver.
Yeah, I don't think he's top 32 this year, and that's going to be simply because the first 6-7 weeks of the season, I don't know if he sees enough targets to make that happen.
Makes sense.
Do you agree, Jorge?
Yeah, that makes total sense. I mean, it comes down to snaps and opportunity, and I honestly would not be surprised if the Chiefs kind of like redo what they do on offense. You bring in Ronald Jones. I mean, it's Ronald Jones, right? But at the same time, I'm wondering whether or not the Chiefs try to go a little bit more run heavy, take a little bit more pressure off of Patrick Mahomes, given the deficiencies they now have at the receiving position, and kind of slowly work their way back into being more of a high passing volume offense. That's just what I think is going to happen this year with what's going on in Kansas City. But Skyy Moore towards the latter half of the end half of the season, I could see him picking up a lot of value. But I just think that, like you said, Jeff, the snaps are going to get in his way of making the top 32.
JJ said he's off Team Skyy, or shall I say the sky is limited. We don't like that type of slander around here, JJ.
That's rude, JJ. Hate
all right,
speech.
well,
I won't have it.
I love Skyy more than I want to take. What's the word? I take offense to one thing you said. I wouldn't insinuating he's a raw prospect. I just say he's raw because he's a rookie, right? Treylon Burks is a raw prospect.
Right.
Skyy Moore, not so much, but he's still a rookie. Still year one in the NFL. Still didn't come from SEC level competition week in and week out. So I'd say he's raw in that way. All right, let's move on. Let's do another wide receiver because we got another comment here, and then we can talk about some IDP guys. So Fantasy Swag 101.
Nice.
Said, hold on, let me type it in here.
The 101 of screen names.
Yeah, we need a rewards program, and he gets a point. So good job, Fantasy Swag 101.
Any chance Terrace Marshall comes alive?
No.
No. Nope. Sorry, I hate to break it to you, but who's the quarterback? Is it going to be Darnold for most of the season, and Corral sits on the bench? I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I think that maybe if Corral gets some starts later in the year, he might spread the ball around a little bit. Maybe you'll get like a little the backup quarterbacks thrown to like the second and third string receivers sort of thing because he's used to them. I don't know. I'm not banking on Terrace Marshall though.
Yeah, well, I think it's actually Terrace, not Terrence.
Terrace.
I'm
just reading. I'm like Ron.
I know. That's okay.
I know. Off the teleprompter.
Take it easy, Red. Take the question marks off the teleprompter.
I guess the question is also like the question is, does he come alive? When does he come alive? Is it this year? I don't see it this year, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't hate him as a prospect. Here's a great question. Where would he rank for you, Jeff, in this rookie class? If he was a prospect this year, don't know anything about what happened last year in the NFL, but looking at his profile.
Gosh, he's probably not even in the top 12.
Yeah.
He's pretty low. So I wasn't that high on him when he came out. I liked the LSU profile. That was like the big positive. And the thought was, well, hey, he was a part of everything they were doing at LSU, and he's great, whatever. I couldn't mesh that with what I saw on film, and I couldn't mesh that with what happened at the combine and his workouts. Like it didn't seem like a really complete profile that I could get behind. I mean, I don't think he's a bad player. If Robbie Anderson gets traded, he could be force-fed some targets, but his production is going to really hinge on whether or not Robbie Anderson is there, because DJ Moore is the guy. CMC is also the guy. And then after that, it's really anyone's guess. I
will say, short list of players to do something stupid off the field. Robbie Anderson, aka explicit comments about doing things in the eye of a police officer's wife at a pullover. That guy with the Coolio haircut. Listen, he's high profile.
Is this really a thing? Is this happening?
Oh yeah, go look up Robbie Anderson transcript with a police officer and pulled over, and it's like X-rated insults. It's hilarious. It's also long.
He's a special case. The rumor was they were looking to trade him and that they were seeking out partners and all that kind of stuff. But it seems like it would be cost prohibitive to cut him. So I think they're married to him for at least another year unless they find a trade partner. And there's a few wide receiver needy teams out there. But Terrace Marshall buried until something happens with Robbie Anderson, or they just frankly get a better quarterback. And I don't think either of the guys they have on the roster are it.
Fair enough. All right, well, let's look at some of your takes in here in our little doc, Jorge.
Sure.
Let's pivot over to some IDP guys, and we'll focus a little bit on second-year guys and continue that discussion.
Okay.
But I want to talk about Tryon-Shoyinka, Tampa Bay. You've got him in there. I did not. Why do you have him as a second-year breakout at linebacker?
Well, first of all, the competition, if you wanted to call it that, is no longer there. And Jason Pierre-Paul, he's no longer with the Buccaneers. So Shoyinka is automatically starting in that outside linebacker slot opposite of Shaq Barrett. What was really, really awesome about Shoyinka last year was that even in limited snaps, his pressure rate was 5%. When I was looking at the other, preeminent pass rushers in the league, that's right up there with Bosa. That's right up there, better than Max Crosby. Texans Jonathan Grenard, who I'm a big fan of. Marcus Davenport. So right up there with Emmanuel Ogbah. Like just such great production. Where he lacked, I don't want to say talent, but lacked production. However, was in the running game. He had a missed tackle rate of close to 17%, which is like utterly atrocious. And Todd Bowles, he's one of those coaches like, you mess up in the running game, you're not going to see the field. So he needs to clean it up big time. But his ability to apply pressure to the quarterback is fantastic. They took him in the first round for a reason last year. This guy is an utter talent, and I think this is the year where you're going to see him really take that next step. In fact, when the season ended, he didn't leave when everybody else went on their vacations elsewhere. He stayed in Tampa Bay, and he was working with the coaches, working with everybody else to get better. So all the positive news you're hearing from him out of the local media, right up until what his production was showing and trending towards last year, breakout, I think, is coming.
Excellent. Jeff, what are your thoughts on him?
Well, I think he actually really well summed it up. The thing that I'm wondering about is how they're going to deploy him. The thing here is that he actually had a bunch of snaps at D tackle last year when they had a couple of injuries and some guys were nicked up, and they'd line him up inside of a player like Shaq Barrett, and they'd run those two on all kinds of different stunts and twists. And when you have that kind of game going on, and he's as quick and as big and as strong as he is, he can be lethal up front. But again, to Jorge's point, if you're not getting it done in the run game, it makes it hard to continue to deploy you that way. So hopefully him sticking around, working out some more, hanging out with those veteran guys, maybe being around the coaches some more, maybe that'll help him be able to diagnose those run plays and be more reliable as a tackler so he doesn't have to come off the field in those situations.
That's fair. He actually wasn't on my list, and so maybe I'll put him on my radar. I like that take. Everything you said makes sense, and I was just looking at his stats. He closed out the year decently well for a guy in a rotational role, so I can see it. Is he going to be somebody that qualifies as an edge player in a lot of IDP leagues?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay. That is one thing for anyone that's thinking about joining IDP leagues. If you can do it with an edge spot, it makes the linebacker breakdown a lot simpler and easier to digest because you have these guys like Khalil Mack and TJ Watt they're defensive ends that don't put their hands in the dirt all the time. So then they get scored like linebackers, and it can be annoying if you have various scoring. But anyway, let's move on to Kwity Paye. So Kwity Paye, this guy, I love. I am so excited about him. That said, I'm not going to talk. I'm going to let you guys talk because y'all are the experts here on this, even though I think I know more than everyone. So, Kwity Paye. Jeff, this was Jorge's guy. He put him on his list, but I want you to dive in on him.
Okay. I mean, hey, look, heavy snap guy. You're talking 600 plus snaps on the D-line last year. Playing next to DeForest Buckner makes anybody better. But a lot like Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, I totally butchered his name. I apologize. Run game is another problem. Now, this is a dude who's 6'4", 272. He shouldn't be having problems in the run game, but he tends to get beat around the edge just a little bit. I think getting acclimated to NFL speed coming around his forward arm is something that he needs to get a little better at. But I like him as a second-year breakout, as a dedicated DL. He's probably going to be an edge in some formats. But, the sack numbers should start to present themselves. I want to see a few more tackles, though, to make him a safe weekly play.
That's fair. And he was, if you think back to last year, he was a guy that everyone was like ceiling super, super high. Mm-hmm. Rawness, also super, super high.
Right.
And so he's got kind of that I don't want to say direct comparison to Trayvon Walker, but in terms of like being NFL ready day one and being a guy that's hyped a lot, similar in that aspect. You're the guy that put him down. So what makes you think he's going to like break out this year? I mean, we're talking about breakout. What does that mean for you for Kwity Paye?
So for me, this is one of these instances where opportunity is kind of the deciding factor on what you're going to see here. And not to mention what we saw in free agency and with the Colts bringing in Yannick Ngakoue, who's always getting you those sack numbers and getting you those pressures and demand. And in this case, on the Colts defensive line, you don't have Al-Qadim Muhammad anymore. He's over in Chicago. So Kwity Paye is in line for a full-time role. No rotation going in there, and with offensive lines kind of dedicating attention to Ngakoue, I just feel like Paye is going to be in a great position to get great one-on-one matchups. I don't have his win percentage against offensive linemen on the top of my tab of 1,000 tabs I have open, so it was respectable. It was respectable. It was good, and I just think he just needs to benefit, or he will benefit rather from just more opportunity.
That's fair. I think that I can't remember who it was, but it was somebody that I trust brought him up 3 or 4 weeks ago. They were talking about on a podcast guys that could really, really take a huge step forward in year 2. So I was happy to see him on the list there. We also had, going back to Reddit real quick, Gabe Davis was brought up. Gabe Davis is I'm tired of listening to people talk about him. This
is going to be Robert Foster. Is it Robert Foster all over again? Remember when Robert Foster was super hyped? He had that like huge 3 or 4 game stretch for Buffalo 3-4 years ago, and it was like, oh, Robert Foster season, and the guy evaporated. Like I don't even know if he's in the league anymore.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah.
Well, this guy isn't hyping him up. He's just asking what's his realistic ceiling because he seems either really liked or really hated by most people on the Dynasty subreddit.
Well, I'll tell you what. Give me a second. I'll see if I can pull him up in our projections doc over here.
Mm-hmm.
I'll let you guys chat about him. Let me go track him down.
Well, Jorge, so what do you think of Khalil Shakir? Because I like him a lot more long-term than Gabe Davis.
I think everyone is having a severe case of recency bias to the playoff game where Gabe Davis
super recency bias, right?
Yeah, people tend to forget. Like people will tell me, "Oh, well, he's going to be there and no Emmanuel Sanders, and he was able to." He was on the cusp. He was on the cusp there. And I don't see him not still being on the cusp of being a fantasy producer. I don't think he's a locked into your roster wide receiver too. He may be a flex, somebody that you're putting in there in certain situations where you're playing the matchups here. But I think we need to pump the brakes on, this 4 touchdown performance or 3 touchdown performance, whatever it was against the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs. Like, I get it. He's open. What I will say though, is when Diggs was covered up by the defense in Kansas City, the fact that Josh Allen looked Gabe Davis's way, like without hesitation, looked at him, threw him open, both. That's great for Davis. That's great for his opportunity. You get rid of Cole Beasley. Okay, well, I'll let you bring in Jameson Crowder, but an unfamiliar face, an unfamiliar person has more of a chemistry with Gabe Davis. Just because he has chemistry with him, I don't necessarily see that as being something that you should be, hitching your wagon to in terms of a full-time wide receiver 2 on your roster.
I 100% agree. And before you talk about your projections, Jeff, I haven't seen these projections, but I want to take a wild guess.
Hit me.
520 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns.
No, actually, I like him more than that.
All right.
So I've actually got him at wide receiver 41 right now. And he's a wide receiver 4.
Yeah.
People are taking him as a 2. I think that's a little rich. Wide receiver 4, you're talking about 893 yards, 6 touchdowns.
Wow, you liked him a lot more than what I said.
Well, the thing you have to remember is that, you have Crowder and you have some other guys there, but they're all just guys. He's the leader of all the Jags that they have left on the roster after Steph Diggs. And so they didn't draft James Cook to not throw him the football. So what you're going to have is, James Cook running real passing routes, Singletary coming out of the backfield, Knox at tight end, Diggs is the primary guy that'll get force-fed, and then whatever's left over is going to be the Gabe Davis show, and then all the other kind of,
Dawson Knox
guys behind him. Well, Knox I think will be there, especially inside the 20, right? They love him when it's touchdown time. Dawson Knox is suddenly open on every play. So
he's not a second-year guy, but I wonder if Jordan or OJ Howard can find any sort of footing. He's not going to be fantasy relevant unless Dawson Knox goes down. But his talent was so good, and he's not good.
That first championship against Clemson. I mean, he was the guy.
Yeah.
It just ever since then, it just hasn't worked out his way.
Yep. All right. Well, let's go ahead and switch back over to a couple more offensive guys here, and I want to talk about one that we have talked about a little bit on this pod and made jokes about, and that is Kadarius Toney, the wide receiver for the New York Jets.
JJ Werner coming in. OJ Howard is terrible. You stop it, JJ.
Agree.
He
shouldn't be though. He shouldn't be terrible. That's
Everything
what's annoying
says he
about
should be
it.
good, and we feel bad. I feel sad for OJ Howard. It hurts my soul.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. So Kadarius Toney, wide receiver, New York Giants, AKA doesn't want to play football, wants to make a rap song, AKA this or that. Jorge, you have him as a second-year breakout guy. What's the reasoning behind that?
Because who's better on that roster? It's not Galladay. I can tell you that much, Mister. I take breaks every single play I can get.
Yeah.
He had one good season. No, seriously. We had a writer. He was dipping his toes in writing, and it didn't work out because it just didn't work out. But he would keep on like bashing Kenny Galladay. He's like, "Oh, he has no heart. He has no heart." I'm like, okay, well, one, how do we know? I mean, you're not a player. You don't know what these guys go through. Yada yada yada. And then you watch him last season, and I'm like, oh, that's what he was talking about. Because I don't see it. I don't see the effort. I don't see why he got paid the amount of money he did, other than the fact that New York was desperate to sign a big name wide receiver. Big name, not big performance. And it's Daniel Jones throwing the ball. But, and even though Kadarius Toney, he had that one good game versus Dallas, who Mike Glennon was the quarterback, not Daniel Jones. He showed some talent there. And at the end of the day, no Evan Ingram, they do have the opening for getting one more receiving target in here. This is more a testament to Brian Daboll than it is Kadarius Toney. I just feel like Daboll is going to be in a much better position to scheme these receivers based on their talent, where they need to go. And I think, Toney is in a great spot. It does not help that he, a week or two before the draft, there was rumors that they were trying to trade him because he didn't want to show up to minicamp. But then now he wants to show up to minicamp and whatever the thing is. I'm sure you guys have heard.
He's an idiot. He's a good football player.
He's an idiot. But you know what? I think he has some time to between now and training camp to put some stuff together and to appease the coaches. And if he can stay healthy, that's the big if. That's what hurt him last year, before and after that Dallas game. But he definitely does have the talent there. And if by any chance Brian Daboll can, maximize that, I think he's in line for a breakout.
Jeff, 5 sentences on Kadarius Toney.
Okay. Well, let's keep it simple then.
That's
you have a bad quarterback. There's one. With a bad quarterback, you need to manufacture touches. It's 2. When has Brian Daboll manufactured useful touches for a wide receiver? That's a question, but we'll call it number 3. Number 4,
rhetorical.
This jerk-off didn't even want to show up to camp, and he's already in the doghouse. I don't see how this cat is going to end up digging himself out of a deeper hole than Brandon Ayuk was in week 2 with Kyle Shanahan than this guy right now. I mean, they've got Sterling Shepard still. They like him enough. You got Galladay. You're paying him big money. You've got Darius Slayton, who works hard. He may not be good. He's a Jag, but he works hard. I don't see how a guy with a really severe case of the Le'Veon Bells is going to suddenly show up and be a great player. I really need to see some more of that.
Case of the Le'Veon Bells. I love it.
And he's got
late stage.
They drafted his replacement already.
Yeah, it's the late stage Le'Veon Bell. That's where he decided to not show up to camp and make a rap album. So that's kind of where I put him on the hierarchy of his career arc. He's doing it all without the production too. That's what's amazing to me. I mean, he's really advanced for his age.
All right. Well, let's move on to a guy that everyone's excited about, and this is Rashod Bateman, wide receiver for the Baltimore Ravens. We don't need to spend a ton of time talking on him because he is not a secret. But sending Marquise Brown out of there, bringing in no one really else. You got a bunch of tight ends in the draft. You got Lamar Jackson, who only knows how to throw to 2 people. It's going to be Rashod Bateman season in here, and I think he has a chance to jump into the top 15 wide receivers this year if things work out right. It's going to be awesome. But Jorge, what do you think about Rashod just in general? Are you excited for year 2 with him? The opportunity looks like it's there, and we liked his talent pre-draft.
Oh, I was high on him. I was high on him before Brown got traded to Arizona. I mean, you look once Bateman, came along during the season, you saw the shift in targets go away from Marquise Brown and towards Rashod Bateman. If it wasn't him battling that groin injury last year, you would have probably seen the full transition by the end of the season. It was very impressive what he's doing, and like you hit the nail around the head. 2 passing targets. That's all you get with Lamar Jackson. You got Mark Andrews, you needed 1 more. And it's Rashod Bateman, hands down.
Well, you've got in this draft class, you've got 6 or 7 that everyone is freaking out about at wide receiver, right? None of them are Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson level. None of them are Smith Nixon level coming in next year out of Ohio State. Rashod Bateman's kind of that tier, those like 6 or 7 guys this year of a prospect where he's really, really good. Right? He's not an elite prospect. But if I was going to stack him up against the receivers this year as a prospect, he might be one of those guys from last year's class that jumps into the top 5 or 6. What do you think, Jeff?
If Rashod Bateman was in this draft class, he'd be the number 2 wide receiver.
Yeah.
Jameson Williams is actually my number 1. I like Bateman a little bit more than I like Garrett Wilson, but it's really close. Those guys are like neck and neck, virtual tie. The one thing about Bateman is, he's not a secret. Very good football player. Love the draft profile coming out. This is a guy that can play on Sundays without question. I think what's being understated here is the fact that Marquise Brown didn't get the ball because he's not active in the scramble drill. When Villanueva was letting everybody run past him over there at left tackle last season and Lamar was running for his life, you can see Hollywood Brown just standing around on most plays. He needs somebody who's active and getting in his space so he can get rid of the ball. That's what Mark Andrews does so well. Now, given the way they're probably going to have to use Bateman, I don't know if he's even that guy. Like, I think he'll get a bulk of targets, but the guy to keep a lookout for here might be Devin Duvernay. He could be the sneaky kind of guy that pops in as he's very active in the scramble drill. They jumped out of their chairs when they drafted him. Technically,
he's not a secret. He's one of the 5 most added players right now on my fantasy league.
Right. And for good reason, because he's that guy where somebody else has to be there because you can bracket up Mark Andrews, right? And 2 of his best games were without Lamar Jackson.
Fair enough.
So I love Bateman. I think you should definitely be adding him. He's definitely one of those guys that has top 24 upside, but there's a possibility that he's out on the fringe of that simply by virtue of a low volume passing offense.
All right, let's move on to Brian Robinson because you put him in your list, Jorge. I don't have him anywhere on my list. I don't even like the guy. I'm being rude. I want to hear why he's on your rookie impact list and what's going on with that because I maybe you'll change my mind on him.
Well, this first part probably is not going to change your mind. I'm being a huge homer here, being a Commanders fan / Washington football team's fan. Look, here's my rationale. This guy's a bulldozer. Guy's a bruiser. He showed that he can handle the high volume contact in college. Most importantly, this is an indictment on Antonio Gibson. If anything, his drafting and then the recent comments by Ron Rivera stating that they were going to use him much like they did Jonathan Stewart and D'Angelo Williams back in the day. This is a testament to actually where addition is not subtracting the talent from one player or the incumbent player. This is going to help both of them now. Because now you had the concerns with Antonio Gibson where it was a question of durability. Can he hold up for an entire season? He's had injury issues. His turf toe has been popping up the past couple seasons. A lot of Antonio Gibson truthers out there, being a Washington fan, being trying to be an objective analyst. I don't get it. I know his finishes have been great, but I just don't think the consistency is there. I think with Brian Robinson there, especially splitting carries with Gibson, I think this is going to help both of them out. I think you may even see Antonio Gibson go a little bit more in the wideout formation, which, by the way, I don't know if you heard, and this is me being completely sarcastic, that he was a wide receiver in college. I don't know if that ever came out before in the history of media.
Did not
Antonio
know that.
Gibson. Okay. But I just feel like the volume is going to be there. The goal line work is going to be there. Not to mention, I don't have a lot of faith in Carson Wentz in this passing game. So therefore, by default, this running game is going to be center stage here for this Washington offense. And I just feel like with the talent and power that Robinson has paired with Antonio Gibson, he can definitely be someone who's definitely flex worthy for you in certain spots this season.
Interesting. You didn't change my mind, but those all are really good points. You helped me move the needle a little bit.
Well, you know, that's okay. That's okay. One day at a time.
I'm not saying those are bad takes at all. I think what I'm trying to say here is that I just don't see a long-term relationship with him on any of my fantasy teams or with the NFL. And I think you already saw that at Alabama. I mean,
so you're saying you're looking for a one-night stand with Brian Robinson, which that's a little weird. It's a little.
I would love him if Antonio Gibson goes down, and I don't think he's going to be relevant in a couple of years in Dynasty.
It's got really weird really quick.
I know,
but
that's the way to go, though.
Stupid joke.
Ratings, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, ratings. No, so look, I like Brian Robinson. I think he's one of those guys who's actually really underrated in the draft process. He's not a zero in the passing game. He runs with great power. He can get behind his pads. He's not going to razzle dazzle you with a bunch of shiftiness or anything like that. But he's not completely inept when it comes to, sticking your foot in the dirt and making one cut and getting upfield. I'm not looking for 80-yard runs, but if he's getting me 5 or 6, I'm pretty happy. So I like the guy, and I wouldn't even be shocked if he pushed Gibson a little bit for early down work, and they split up some passing down work. Both guys are going to be functional in the offense this year, but don't sleep on this guy. He runs with power. I like him a lot.
You don't have any concerns that he was the worst running back that Alabama's put out as a starter in 10 years?
I'm not looking at that. I'm more looking at Alabama. They turn out 5-star backs all the time. I'm more looking at the traits. What do I see on the film? When he gets the ball in his hands, what does he do?
All right. Yes or no question. Thank you. Moving on. So, Divine Deablo.
I'm loving the dynamic I'm noticing between the two. It's like you guys have been doing this for years.
Oh, God. I hate this guy.
Ignore everything Jeff said and Jorge. Just kidding. Divine Deablo, though. This is a guy that you had on your list, Jorge. I think I forgot to put him on mine. I got to go look at that. I love him. I own him in the Dynasty League. Jeff and I are in. He cheat code, and I think it's going to be a great year for him. I'm not going to say anything else, though. You guys take it away here with Divine Deablo, because I know you both have insight on him that'll make people interested in him, to say the least.
Oh, absolutely. So let's talk about it from two perspectives. Let's talk about it from football. Let's talk about fantasy. If you're on the Sleeper app, you are loving Divine Deablo because he's dual eligible as a linebacker and as a defensive back. So anytime you can get linebacker production for your defensive back in terms of tackle volume, that is fantastic. I think earlier today, a friend of ours, both of ours actually, Gary Davenport put in, Divine Deablo is the reason why I don't like dual designations, because he only played 25 snaps at defensive back. The guy is a linebacker. You're right, Gary. The guy is a linebacker, and he's a pretty darn good linebacker. In fact, for any linebacker that played 17 games, he had the lowest missed tackle percentage of any linebacker at 2.2%. This guy hits. He does not miss. Yes, he was a product of tons of injuries, and I emphasize tons of injuries in that linebacking core for the Vegas Raiders. Doesn't matter. The talent's there. The ability's there. The issue is, they bring in Jayon Brown over from Tennessee. I see Jayon Brown. I'm not a fan. I think he's just a guy. I think he was replaceable for a reason. And I see Divine Deablo coming in there and taking that starting linebacker spot through training camp. And just look out, folks. Just look out.
I mean, I'll just piggyback. And first, not to correct our guy Gary, but he actually last year had 15 snaps at slot corner and 18 more at free safety. So that's 33 snaps. Let's make sure we get these numbers.
We'll bring it back up.
Not 25, 33. Get it right, Gary. Come on, Gary. Love Gary. Gary's a good guy.
Oh, dude, he's like the godfather of IDP. I mean, he's the best.
He hates that. Sorry to interrupt you, but at the Expo last year, a bunch of us, Nate Markham and I, we were calling him that. He's like, and Gary cannot stand compliments. He gets shy. He gets withdrawn. Not a big fan of compliments, but too bad, Gary. You are the godfather of IDP.
So, well, then we'll just bash him when he comes on the show, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
There you go.
Like, Gary, remember when you tweeted the wrong stat about Divine Deablo?
Well, here's the deal. Sneaky good player, something we should add here. He was actually surprisingly good as a pass rusher in terms of applying pressure on passing snaps. So, 187 passing snaps last year. He scored, it was almost a 70% on the PFF score for pass rush grade. Not something you see very often. Right now, he's projected as a Sam linebacker. And if that's the case, we can expect to see him in coverage a little bit more than we probably like, but he's probably going to get to rush a little bit too. So while he'll stack up a few tackles, he might actually give you more sacks than we've been used to in the past. So that's pretty exciting.
That's fair. Jorge, you got any other final thoughts on the Divine Deablo before we move on?
I did not know. Well, for the longest time, I kept on typing his name as the Devil Deablo, not Deablo. And then I was like, oh my God, this guy's the most badass name known to mankind. Not the analysis you're looking for, by the way. But the most badass name known to mankind. Then I saw he spelled it the way he spells it. I'm like, oh, that takes a little bit of the luster.
That's the only way to draft fantasy players is you got to think about the names.
Absolutely.
Forever in one league, I had what was it? I had Jake Butts and and one other guy, and I can't remember. I'll think of it as a show. It was the funniest fantasy name ever, and I had both these guys. Even though one of them I kept on my bench, even though he wasn't relevant, and that was Jake Butts, just so I could keep the name relevant. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Elijah Moore here, and just to give some context, we were going to talk about this guy anyway, but Silver B 3942. I sound like a robot saying that. Silver B 3942 on the Dynasty's beep boop. So what about Elijah Moore versus Garrett Wilson? Who's the big dog in that offense? Can they both eat? Perfect question, man. This is exactly what I was going to ask these guys in the first place, because a lot of people, I think, are sleeping on Elijah Moore. I'm going to give it my take. Garrett Wilson is the 2. But I'll let you guys take it away here, and I actually need to go do one thing, so I'll be back in 45 seconds.
We'll just boot you from the show. Don't worry.
What we'll say is what he meant to say was Corey Davis is his favorite guy. No, I'm just
That's why he ran away. He didn't want to.
Yeah, he didn't want to have his face associated with the guy. No, look, it's Elijah Moore is the one. I mean, and you want to get back to the most basic of analysis. Garrett Wilson's a rookie wide receiver. Like, I'm sorry that we've been spoiled with the Justin Jeffersons and the Jamar Chases and the AJ Browns and Dale Beckham is back in the day. Like, I'm sorry that those great guys existed and have skewed your perception of what you should expect from a wide receiver. I will say this, however, I am kind of high on Zach Wilson. I know he has a lot of deficiencies he showed last year, but then again, rookie, bad situation, not a lot of talent going his way. He did kind of turn out to play better towards the end of the season, not so much passing the ball, but with his legs. So for fantasy, he kind of turned into into something. But I just feel like year 2 in this, this LaFleur offense, I think he's going to see a lot of uptick. You bring in Breece Hall as the running back. You still have Michael Carter there, who they can use in passing situations. I think this is going to be a much more pass-heavy Jets offense, and you go with experience, you go with the guy and that's Elijah Moore.
Yeah, I mean, the big question here isn't so much about the receivers. It's about what is Zach Wilson comfortable with and where does he do his best work? And he does his best work over the middle of the field, and that's going to be where Elijah Moore is going to eat. Garrett Wilson will be on the perimeter trying to take guys downfield. And I'm not saying he won't see plenty of targets, because he will. But at the end of the day, Zach Wilson really saw his play uptick, not just with his legs, but even with his arm to a degree when Elijah Moore was on the field with him, catching balls down the middle. Because he didn't have to be accurate. Elijah Moore was just like, Gumby out there stretching all over the place, getting balls from all over every zip code around him and making plays. That's going to be the separator. And so Elijah Moore should be the target monster in this offense, with Garrett Wilson being a bigger kind of big play threat, right? He might catch 3 or 4 balls, but one of them could go for 55 and a touchdown. So that's the thing you've got to look out for. He might give you 0. He can turn around and give you 26.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I'm listening. I'm also responding to a guy on Reddit.
We were telling everybody that your favorite wide receiver is actually Corey Davis, and that we shouldn't be even considering Elijah Moore or Garrett Wilson in this conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Which is why you also ran away.
Join the leagues I'm in. and trade me for Corey Davis, I'll give you him for like 3 firsts. That's it. No,
That's it. No more.
Corey Davis, I loved him coming out of college. Don't get me wrong. But
Sure. Central Michigan guy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the triple crown of wide receiver stats in football history. I was like, he's going to pan out. There's no way. And here we are. All right, so we got another question here on Travis Etienne. Etienne?
Yeah.
All right, so this is, I'm not even going to say the guy's name. Sorry, dude. I got to move the show along. It's from like, blah, blah, blah. I can't read it.
I was going to say, is it NSFW? Like, what's going on?
Yeah. Any thoughts on Travis Etienne? Nixon's bounce back this year has given me some hope his injury can be overcome. I think it definitely can be overcome, but I don't know about immediately the start of this season.
But he's a talented runner. I mean, there's a reason why we were taking him in early first round of rookie drafts, right? He was a top 3 pick easily, and that wasn't by accident. So I like the player. I like the profile, put up some big games for a big time team. The injury is the injury, right? James Robinson obviously is hurt. We're not going to see him for probably the bulk of the first half of the season. And so it's his show. But I think if you're looking for what his volume might look like, you got to go back and see what Doug Peterson did in Philly. And a lot of it is kind of hit and miss, right? So the hope is that his talent shines through and he can make make a lot out of a handful of touches and do a couple things in the passing game. Because some of the interviews he's had where he says he gets nervous when the ball is in the air coming towards him is terrifying.
It's never a good sign.
Yeah. I just imagine, like, when I watched Leonard Fournette at LSU, I thought he was legitimately scared of the ball because he would fight it when it would come near his body. But now I have that vision of Etienne. Yeah, it's like it's coming near him and he's like hitting the turf and letting it fall, glide over him. But talent's there. I think he can be a player, but we're probably talking his ceiling's to RB2.
Agreed, and I think you nailed it right there. The passing game, that's where his bread and butter is going to be. And I bring attention to Cam Robinson, Brandon Sheriff. They're protecting Trevor Lawrence like it's their job. It's almost like what they should have been doing, last year.
It is,
and you bring Doug Peterson, pass heavy, coach with track record there. Like you said, Etienne. I don't know if the rushing is going to be there more so than the receiving to start the season. I think this is going to be a fairly pass-heavy offense, which only helps Etienne, and especially in PPR leagues.
That's fair. I think he's going to be great long-term. He's still fine. He'd be maybe the RB. He'd probably be the RB3 in this class, maybe the RB2. And so
he's probably the 2. If we took him when he was coming out, it would be a toss up, probably a coin flip between he and Breece Hall.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to a guy that we actually talked down a little bit. And this is a guy on Reddit who in IDP loves some Troy Andersen, the Falcons' 2nd round pick. He's got the keys to the defense from day one. I don't agree. I don't think he does.
Yeah. My question to this person would be like, is Deion Jones not there? Because as long as
Michael Walker's not going away either.
Yeah,
and they signed Rashawn Evans as another middle backer, by the way.
And
they gave him money, so like real money.
Really, the only guy on that defense this year, and I know that this might be like everyone's like, "Oh, Phil's to Luaquan last year, amazing next to Deion Jones." Well, you can't project that to happen again to the next guy they slot in at the position, and they're probably going to rotate players next to Deion Jones kind of on a regular basis. That would be my expectation, but I do like him as a talent. I don't think he's an elite talent, but the opportunity should be there eventually. But what do you guys think about Troy? We can be quick with this one.
Long-term dynasty value, not great for redraft this year.
Bingo. Yep. Hits it on the head. He won't play this year for Atlanta. He'll get some sparse snaps. He'll be a special teamer. Somebody's going to have to get hurt. Maybe a couple somebodies will have to get hurt. But they took him based on the size, speed, athletic profile, and the hope is that as Rashawn Evans and Deion Jones age out in a couple of years, that this guy will step in and be that guy.
Fair enough. Well, let's switch over and stay a little bit on IDP, and then we'll jump back to offense. But I want to bring up
how's our clock looking?
Linebacker. Say what?
How's our clock looking? Do we have a deadline tonight? Are we good?
We don't, but I think we should probably try to wrap up here in the next 15, 20 minutes.
Okay.
What do you think, Jorge?
I'm good for as long as you guys want to
we
keep
can
going.
talk forever. I just know that for viewers, like we talk so much and we want to cover so much. Sometimes I feel like we should do these shows twice each week.
Keeps them wanting more. It keeps you guys coming back more.
I know. All right, here's a guy that I love, right? I know that Jeff loves him. His opportunities there.
We're in heavy like. I don't know about love, but we're in heavy like.
Heavy like. I love it.
You love his opportunity this year, though. You say that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I think there's tons of opportunity there for sure.
Zayvon Collins, Isaiah Simmons last year, Zayvon Collins this year. Arizona is like, F these rookies. they take the what's his name approach from the Rams for picks, and they apply it to the
Les Snead. I think
the Les Snead. They're like, we don't like you. We'll see you next year, but thanks for joining the team. And Zayvon Collins got that treatment last year. Jordan Hicks is gone. Zayvon Collins could very well finish as a top 15 linebacker this year if things play out, but he's a definite breakout for me. What do you guys think?
I'm not as high. I have some reservations about Zayvon Collins. It was supposed to be the Collins and Simmons show last year, and then Jordan Hicks, he was supposed to be on his way out of Arizona. They ended up keeping him, and he's like, no, young one, you sit on the bench. I would be 100%, no questions asked, no doubt whatsoever. Just give him the keys right away for my LB2, LB3 spot. If they didn't bring in Nick Vigil from Minnesota, who, when he was in the starting lineup for Anthony Barr last year, the guy produced. He's a solid tackle machine monster, solid LB2 for fantasy purposes. The tackle numbers are there. I question whether Zayvon Collins can beat him out. And if Collins goes down to injury, God forbid, I don't see Nick Vigil necessarily relinquishing that starting role when Collins comes back. Collins, he has a lot of promise. A lot of talent, but he's one of those. I think Nate Markham over at Fantasy Rams, he could. He lives in Missouri, and the show me state, and I think that's kind of where I'm at with Zayvon Collins. I need him to show me from an NFL level that he can actually stay on the field and hold that spot, and I think Nick Vigil can give him a run for his money.
That's actually a really, really good angle, and I still love Zayvon Collins, but I hadn't really considered the Vigil thing. So
I'll counter that.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so here's the thing. Isaiah Simmons was a far better prospect coming out than Zayvon Collins, right? We can agree the draft profile was much better than Zayvon Collins, and they basically sat him for the first 11 weeks of the year, his rookie year. They completely misused him. They didn't let him on the field. That's a Vance Joseph trait. It's just what he does. Completely misuses his talent. And let's be honest about where the Cardinals are defensively. Their weakness is in their secondary, in their corners. And what they're going to do is they're going to force, teams are going to force them into nickel and keep them in 4-2-5 all the time, because that's how they're going to beat them. And they're going to beat them like a drum because they have no pass rush anymore. Marcus Golden's their number one pass rusher. It's hard for me to get behind the idea of, an aging JJ Watt getting real pressure on quarterbacks. Zayvon Collins can cover. Nick Vigil couldn't cover any of the three of us. And so
wow.
What if we had candles and it was dark out and we were having like a candle light?
He's gonna well, here's the thing. He might cover you, but I'll have to throw a blanket over you to do it.
Oh my God. Wow.
No, so here's the deal. It's gonna be Zayvon Collins, and it's gonna be simply because he's following the same trend that he used with Isaiah Simmons, and he being Vance Joseph. And so when you consider the fact that I've got a 23-year-old kid who's now been in the system for a year versus the free agent I just brought in, who truthfully, when you look at Nick Vigil and you consider, I like to look at a PFF score just to kind of get a rough gauge on a player. I try to take the stat sheet and then the PFF score and see, okay, well, where does the truth lie? Nick Vigil was one of the worst graded linebackers in football last year. He came in the 50s. And so I think he's going to be a depth and rotational guy, and Zayvon Collins will play. This is going to be an upside in the range of, call it 107, 117 total tackles. So that's going to be your solos plus assisted. He will play. He'll be on the field in nickel. He'll be on the field in base with Vigil on the other side. The opportunity is too large, and Arizona's not going to be good this year, at least not as good as they were last year. A lot of chance for him to pile up some tackles and things.
Jorge, you have the floor for 40 seconds.
Yeah. That's a very good point. It's
a very good point.
No, it's a very good point. I guess my concern here is, you read on Twitter and you read on the different, analysts, posts and whatnot about Zayvon Collins. The question is what you're willing to invest in him, what you're willing to give up for him if you're trying to acquire him. If he happened to be somebody that you drafted, then obviously you're riding with him until he shows you otherwise. I think his cost or price for Dynasty is a little bit way too high and being overblown until you actually see some production. We're banking a lot on the narrative that it's a Vance Joseph mishandling talent thing, which is, you're not wrong. You mentioned Isaiah Simmons. He can line up in the secondary, he can line up in the line, all this other stuff. I don't know. I'm not as bullish on Zayvon Collins, I guess.
And it's over. All right, moving on.
That's perfect timing. Perfect timing.
Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, and Trey Lance. 3 guys that I had thrown in as potential breakout candidates at quarterback year 2. Let's just be real quick here. If you had to pick one of these, who are you picking? Jorge.
Oh, it's Trevor Lawrence. That solidification of that offensive line it did it for me. It's like, okay, you can protect this guy who was number 1 overall pick in football last year. You give him some weapons, granted not the greatest weapons, but the most expensive weapon, or one of the most expensive weapons in all of football. You give him a pass catching tight end who, if he can stay healthy, I mean, the sky's the limit for Trevor Lawrence this year. If these weapons can stay healthy and this offensive line can keep him upright, and I think they can.
All right, Jeff, who do you got?
I love Lawrence. I love him so much. I grade these guys out every year, right? I always pick kind of my 3, who are the guys that have Hall of Fame level potential, right? And Lawrence is that guy. He's the best quarterback prospect we've seen since Andrew Luck or John Elway, Peyton Manning. He's right in that same class. Now that he has some weapons to work with and, frankly, a better coaching staff, like that whole rookie year should be considered a mulligan. For fantasy, though, Trey Lance is going to run all over the field. It's going to be really hard to not love Trey Lance in fantasy this year. He won't be a great passer. I'm a 49ers fan, but at the end of the day, Tim Tebow is a bad passer, and he was a QB1. Like, let's not forget about that. Jalen Hurts, terrible passer, QB1. Like, I think I've got to hitch my wagon to some Trey Lance right now.
Can I ask you a question about that real quick?
Sure. It's going to be uncomfortable.
If the 49ers were 100% in on Trey Lance, don't you think that they would have found a trade partner for Jimmy Garoppolo?
I think Jimmy's late decision to get that shoulder surgery is what really derailed the trade.
Okay.
And so the idea was that there were takers, there were suitors, and then the shoulder thing popped up and they lost all their suitors.
Gotcha.
And truthfully, I think they knew who the suitors were. And this is me putting on my tinfoil hat now, right? Just kind of reading the tea leaves.
Sure.
Jimmy wanted to go to a contender. He wanted to go somewhere where he could compete and win. And I think the teams that were popping up to trade for him weren't in that class. And so he decided, well, if I'm going to go there, I'm going to get the shoulder surgery and, I can kind of force my way either to stay here or whatever else. It wouldn't shock me if there was some behind the curtain drama going on there with that.
Yeah, makes sense. I have no idea. So I wanted to ask the resident 49ers fan what he thought.
Yeah. All right, fair enough. All right, so let's go. I'm gonna pull your list up of rookie running backs. We did a rookie show, so we don't need to spend too much time on these guys. But this is Jorge's list in this little doc we whipped together of potential impact rookies year 1. Jeff and I agree. This is exactly the 4 guys we talked about in our show. So just like real quick, Jorge, just run through like 2 or 3 sentences on each of these guys.
Dameon Pierce, volume,
Yep.
Done.
Did you watch our show? We were talking about what rookie player might have the most touches on offense this year, and it might be Dameon Pierce.
I think just Texans offense as a whole is just completely underrated. I mean, it's not going to blow everybody away, but Davis Mills, Brevin Jordan, Cooks, Nico Collins, Dameon Pierce. I mean, they're going to get opportunity, and that's going to be great for fantasy. Breece Hall. Look, it goes without saying. This guy is the 101 of picks in Dynasty. Just great talent, great absorb. He can absorb contact. He can still produce. Just love the guy. And I had Brian Robinson, who we do not agree on. But I noticed that you had Kenneth Walker on there in Seattle. I'm a little concerned with Rashod Penny and his 4 games. I don't know if that sarcasm came through enough or not. You did have Tyler Algier on here. I also think that's actually a really good to pick, just because, again, the volume situation in Atlanta. Those would be my guys.
Cool. Well, I'm not going to repeat everything I said last show, but I've watched the Seahawks every game for the last 10 years. I don't give a damn about Rashod Bateman or Chris Carson.
Well, Chris Carson, I feel bad for. He has the neck thing. He may not even play football
He's probably
again.
dust, and Penny is going to get hurt. So
Right.
boot up for Kenneth Walker at some point this year, and you'll be happy if you have him. All right, I'm going to pull up. Let's do, what do you think? Maybe 3 more offense, 3 more defense. We can close this thing out. Go and look at your list real quick. Do you have the spreadsheet pulled up, Jorge?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Pick a guy that we haven't talked about.
All right. So he exploded in year. He had a year 1 pop, as you have in the list here, but you may expect more from. And it's kind of hard to expect more from Jalen Waddle after what he did last year. But guess what? You can, because now you have defensive backs keying on Tyreek Hill and making him even more open for one-on-one coverage situations. I just think Jalen Waddle, the receptions were there, the targets were there, and everyone wants to talk about Tyreek Hill. And this is not an indictment on Tua. I think he can throw a deep ball. I think he can be productive. He is not Patrick Mahomes. Let's make these distinctions right here. But the more attention you give away from Jalen Waddle, the more he's just going to eat up. And I just think you're going to see even a bigger amount of production for him this year.
Am I having a stroke, or was Devontae Parker on that team last year too?
He was
on the team last year. Now he's on the New England Patriots.
Yeah, so there you go. I mean, you brought in Tyreek. You got rid of Devontae. Tyreek's going to command more than Devontae probably did, but Jalen Waddle is going to be able to draw less coverage. And it's the same thing as the Elijah Moore situation. Everyone's like, all these other additions. I'm like, don't worry.
The emergence of Gesicki helps too. I mean, Gesicki emerging, he's running the seam. You've got Tyreek Hill on one side, Waddle on the other. Like, Tua is going to be thrown into wide open windows. It's going to be reminiscent of his Alabama days.
Fair enough. I want to hear. Let's go back to Houston real quick. You had Brevin Jordan on here. Jeff, Brevin. You take away Brevin because Jorge put him on. What are your thoughts?
Here's the thing. Tight end after the top 6 or 7 is a complete freaking coin flip wasteland. Pick your guy, right? I happen to have Brevin Jordan rostered in a few spots. I just like, he's enough of an athlete. He catches the ball well enough. He gets open enough. He does everything kind of enough, right? This is not a player who in 3 or 4 years from now we're going to be talking about as like the sexy hot name in tight ends. It's going to be a guy that you're going to be able to plug into your lineup reliably and get a few points. I'm not doing backflips over him, but I like having him on my roster.
All right, Jorge. Jeff just took a huge dump all over that guy.
No, but he's not wrong. But it doesn't take much to be fantasy relevant at the tight end position. No, you're not wrong. But I think right now for redraft this year, don't be surprised if he has a couple good weeks here. And if you see, for me, I would not do redraft. I would get him a lot in best ball leagues, to be honest with you. That's where you're going to get your production.
That's fair. I like that.
And it's okay to say if I'm wrong, because I'm wrong a lot. My wife tells me so.
We're going to have some kind of like wager going with Zaven Collins this year. I'm loving it. I'm loving the.
I know. That's going to be awesome.
We've got to get board bets. We've got to get a board of dollars.
Let's bring it up again when we get on your show.
Fair enough.
All right, let's move back to the Niners real quick. Elijah Mitchell, darling last year in fantasy, right? Mm-hmm. They brought in this dude from LSU that runs straight real fast. And they don't really they got a guy with a bad back that no one cares about. They got another guy that is kind of in and out of injuries that's fast. I'm not worried about him losing his workload to any of these guys despite the draft capital, but that is the prevailing narrative that people are worried about in Dynasty. Should they, Jorge?
No. And they also have a guy who likes to run headfirst into concussions talking about Trey Sermon. I don't know if that was too hard of a dig. Sorry about that.
I mean, I was so mad when we drafted him, so you're not hurting my feelings.
No, look, Elijah Mitchell, look what he did last year. It's amazing. He's what everybody wanted. He's going to be what everybody wanted Raheem Mostert to be this year, except he's going to stay healthy.
Yeah. Well, the stay healthy thing, that's bold. I don't think they're allowed to be healthy if you're a 49ers running back. You have to get hurt for a few games.
Yeah, we
like to
we try to rotate through our backs as best we can. And by that, I mean, we try to run them squarely into the ground pretty much week after week after week. And that tends to be our move.
Yeah. Jeff, where do you think Elijah Mitchell can finish? Like, what's his ceiling this year and what's his floor as a running back?
I mean, the only thing with Elijah Mitchell is that we're talking about a guy who's sharing touches now with Trey Lance and Deebo Samuel, not to mention whatever other running backs start popping out of the woodwork. The sneaky part of all of this is that Anthony Lynn is now like the run game coordinator, like co-offensive coordinator, and he loves having 2 running backs. He loves having 2 dudes, and I really think that's where this pick came from with the kid from LSU. It's going to be Mitchell plus one of these other guys. There was a cat from Georgia Tech that's in our rookie camp right now, undrafted free agent. Apparently that's been catching a ton of balls and looking amazing. I can't remember his name now, but I was talking about him with Jordan Vanek last night, and escapes me because apparently, I don't know, I'm old and can't remember things. But, it's just any one of these guys can pop up at any time. RB2, man. Your RB3 is, possible. He could slide that far. I don't know that he's a 1,000-yard guy.
Fair enough. Well, I think that what do you think his like passing shots could be like?
Well, I'll tell you what. I can get you a target breakdown. How about I get that for you? Let's see if I can pull that right up.
Right, you do that, and then I'm going to throw in the last 2 position groups, and we can wrap this thing up.
I need like some like fancy music to guide me into getting the target breakdowns here.
We forgot to. Speaking of music, so that intro song, it's a new intro. That is an artist called Swum. And I've been following his stuff since I used to work in the music industry, like way back in the day. He's one of the guys that I actually wrote about a couple times. And that was 10 years ago. And he's still making beats. And they're awesome. Super chill, lo-fi. Just the like, if you... Well, we don't have the family friendly tag on here. So if you smoke weed, it's great to listen to while you're doing that.
Checking for tag. Oh, we're good.
But Swum's amazing. I shot him, hit him up on Twitter, and he gave it a like. Yeah, saying we could use his stuff on the show, so appreciate that. Go give him a follow and listen to his music. It's Swum, SWUM.
So here's where we're at with Elijah Mitchell. The running back group isn't going to see a whole ton of targets this year. I've got Elijah Mitchell at only about 30 targets. There's just not enough meat on that bone, especially with Trey Lance in there at quarterback. The Niners don't project to be one of the highest volume passing teams out there. So we're talking about a bottom 10-ish team in terms of total attempts, only about 30 targets for Mitchell. This is not somebody you're going to be banking on in PPR. I've only got him for 1,100 total yards, rushing, receiving.
Ooh.
10 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's good. That's great. That's like running back 12? That's fine.
He's going to be, he'll be a 2. A strong 2 with, depending on injuries, could slide into being a 1. But, I mean, you got to remember, Juszczyk's going to get some looks. Jermichael Hasty's not going anywhere. You'll get some of these other backs are all going to get a handful of, targets. And don't forget about Deebo, Ayuk, and Kittle. And Danny Gray is making some noise in rookie camp. So there could be I hate saying that. I want to get mouths to feed, but
I want Twitter to verify me as the OG Danny Gray truther.
Actually, Jordan got you beat on that one. He was talking about him. Yeah.
No, I brought him up on the mock we did like a month and a half ago, and you guys all made fun of me for it. I don't want to hear it.
I mean, well, but we make fun of you for a lot of things, so I don't know that that's really unique.
I was here first. Let it be recognized. All right, so let's look at some linebackers. Pete Werner, Nakobe Dean, Devin Lloyd. These are not in order. Quay Walker, Ernest Jones, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. These guys are all like year 1 and 2 guys. I think y'all should each pick 2 of these guys that you think could have like the biggest impact based on where they might be going in drafts and where they're going to finish.
Sure. For me, hands down, it's Devin Lloyd and Quay Walker. You look at the tackle rates here, in college, Devin Lloyd had a 15.3% total tackle rate, 9.2% total tackle rate. If we were to draw comparisons, which I know that gets tricky because obviously college versus the pros, but we're talking about linebackers that have a similar tackle rate of Bobby Wagner, Devondre Campbell, and C.J. Mosley. Speaking of Devondre Campbell, he's basically him and Quay Walker are basically being compared as the 1 and 1A to one another. It's high tackle volume rate, low missed tackle volume, both inside linebackers here for the Packers. It's like literally they drafted the clone of Devondre Campbell, and we all saw how that paid dividends for fantasy last year.
The tiny clone.
Yeah, the clone nonetheless. It's like Twins. I don't know if I'm aging myself with that movie Twins with Danny DeVito and Arnold
Quay Walker is like 240, isn't he?
But bigger than Danny DeVito is where I'm going with that.
Did I have that backwards? Is it Nakobe Dean? That's the
Nakobe Dean is the short one.
Yeah, he's 6'228".
Quay Walker is. He's got some size to him. Both of these guys, I think, just tackle volume all across their foreheads. That's what it says.
Yeah, Quay Walker is girthy, is a good word to use. So I thought you'd enjoy that. I love that, and I love all of that. Really, it's but for me, I'm going to go a different direction simply because Nakobe Dean is, despite his shoulder injury and despite his draft capital and all of that, this is a guy where if you go turn on Derek Brooks' tape in 1994 for Florida State, and then you go turn on UGA's tape last year, you're watching the same player. And that's the one thing where when I see that and I see those kinds of traits and that kind of comp, I can't look away. I can't not love it. He's my man crush. I want him in all my leagues. If he's hurt and it ends up being a complete bust, shit happens. Yeah. But you know what? I'm willing to bank on the upside because this is one of the only players we've seen at the position that has so consistently made plays in the passing game, not just knocking balls away, but making tackles downfield and making them behind the line of scrimmage. He and Kyle Hamilton were just lock, stock studs at doing that last year. So really, really love him. If something really goes sideways with that shoulder, then I'm willing to back away. But give me some Nakobe Dean. And then, I know this is your guy, Ronnie. Give me some Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. This is a guy where last year on Getting Defensive during our draft specials, I was all over this train. I had a Jamal Adams comp on him. For everybody that was watching back then, you can feel free to go check that out on YouTube. It's a good year ago. This is another guy where just needs to stay on the field. He's going to end up being the weak side linebacker. He'll be the run and hit guy. He can cover a little bit, make plays all over the field, just like Nakobe Dean, right? There's a real thread in the guys I like. I want guys in that Derek Brooks, kind of Darius Leonard sort of a mold because they're never, not productive for fantasy.
Yeah.
And yes, I went double negative, JJ. I know you're still watching, English teacher.
Well, yeah, JOK. I mean, he was PFF's, I think, highest graded. He was the 9th highest graded overall linebacker last year.
Yeah, he was off the chain.
I mean, he's so talented, man. He's got to stay healthy, and if he does, he's going to be a monster in fantasy. The other guy, neither of you brought him up, but Pete Werner in New Orleans. The opportunity is there, and I know they went and got another linebacker, but they got a slower, shittier version of Pete Werner in the draft, and I don't care. This guy, he's going to get a lot of snaps. He's going to be playing full-time next to Demario Davis, and he's going to be a fantasy steal for a lot of people. I think that he has really, really good case to be slotted in as that RB18, RB19 at the end of the year and finish right there as this super high value. You see him every year. You see 3 or 4 of these guys that are getting taken in that linebacker 4 range, and they're coming in at the end of the year as a linebacker 2, and they're winning you your leagues. Pete Werner might be the guy.
I love Werner. I mean, you picked a bunch of really good guys here. I mean, this is I can't argue with that. The fact that he'll be playing that weak side spot really helps. They tried initially when they got him into camp, they tried to put him in the Sam spot, the strong side. It's not really where he's at his best. Let him go run around and make plays, and he's good at that. I love it. I love him next to Demario Davis. Another guy to watch in New Orleans is DeQuell Jackson. That's a guy they drafted out of out of App State. This is a guy, super fluid hips. He can cover downfield, and he hits like an absolute freight train. I love him taking over that Mike spot sometime in the near future when Davis goes away or when Zach Bond completely falls on his face as a Sam. We could see some of him this year. So not a fantasy asset right now, but, man, if you can go get him in your draft, stash him, stick him on the taxi squad, he'll pay some dividends for you probably in 23 or 24.
Add on to what you guys are saying, if you guys haven't had your drafts already, Christian Harris out of Alabama, rated as PFF's 8th best run stopper, sitting behind Christian Kirksey, old man Christian Kirksey. All he has to do is just get on the field. Those tackle volumes, look at the division, look at the running backs in the division, look who he has to go take. He has a low missed tackle percentage. He hits the guys. He brings them down. Middle linebacker, just hang on to him. If you can get him in your rookie drafts, he will pay dividends.
Well, I do think that Christian Harris is interesting because Alabama was funny this year. They typically, their guys go when they're NFL ready, they're out. But COVID screwed that up across the board in the NCAA for the last 2 years, and you had a lot of these guys that are like almost super seniors when you look at their talent and why they're still playing college football. And Christian Harris was kind of that guy, but he again, kind of the same as Brian Robinson. I think he's really good too, but I have hesitations for him just a little bit over a lot of these other linebackers. That doesn't mean I don't think he's going to be fine.
I wouldn't put him on this list that you have in front of us on the screen.
Right. All right. I wanted to just clarify.
No. I'm saying more like the dynasty developmental player. Yeah.
Yes. All right. Perfect. I 100% agree there. I think year 1 is going to be tricky for him, but Christian Kirksey can't stay healthy anymore anyway, so we'll see with that. All right, let's do like one more position, and then we got one last comment here on Reddit. My beard is tickling my nose right now. This is great. I'm gonna move over to this entire list of wide receivers. This whole dang list. Let me paste these in here real quick.
It's all right. We don't have the family friendly thing on here. It's okay.
You're established.
Yeah. Oh, man, you just drop an F-bomb? Do we bleep those? Is that a thing? Are we getting those?
We don't get people's feelings.
It's not like cable TV where they only bleep certain bad words.
Right.
And then I'm typing this live as we're going. So if you're listening on a podcast, what up?
It's
a lot of dead space and click right now.
Well, I'll tell you what. Hey, I'll throw something down on Christian Harris while you're typing.
Okay.
My only reservation about this guy is that from 19 to 20 to 21, we saw the same exact player. While that was a good football player, I would have liked to have seen some more development, especially in coverage. I would have liked to have seen more spatial recognition and awareness. When I go back, I'm a real big fan of analytics, but I think analytics and film should be married. Those two things have to come together to make sure the prospect is right. And this is a guy where I'm looking at him. I'm like, hey, he can stop the run. He's really good at that. He hits like a freight train, blah, blah, blah. He's got long enough arms. He can make enough plays, but his spatial awareness kind of stinks. I don't see him being fluid enough in the pass game to cover downfield. Profiles as a nice, middle linebacker, give him an inside spot, in a 3-4. I just kept seeing almost like a smaller version of Brandon Spikes.
Brandon Spikes. No, you hit the nail right on the head. He is best in the middle.
Yeah,
he's not going to be one of those coverage linebackers. He's not going to be one of those weak sides that can go in coverage and come back. No, he is your traditional in the middle run stopping
thumper. That's what we should call him. Let's just call him thumper.
We call them hashtag tackle machines. That's his job. That's his role. Focus him. Put the blinders on. Go get your guy. Go make your tackle.
Yeah,
and that's what you're going to get out of him.
Well, and know you're scoring, right? So this is the position where if your league
Absolutely.
is like, hey, we're all about big plays and we don't really, it's not tackle heavy or balanced, then maybe you got to avoid that cat.
Right.
Fair enough. Well, that was I was alluding to that with Brian Robinson and Christian Harris. You had these guys that stayed late at Alabama, and they also one of them sat on the depth chart a little bit his whole career and then got his chance. Christian Harris kind of played the whole time but never improved. And so they're both I'm lower on them than I typically am on Alabama studs that come out in years past is basically what I'm getting at there. All right, let's look at these wide receivers real quick. There's so much wide receiver to look at in Dynasty. I mean, it's this new landscape, and it's going to keep being this way for the next few draft classes. There's a couple guys next year that better than everyone this year. There's a few guys in the 2025 class, if you're getting super deep in Debbie, that look like they might be absolute monsters. But focusing on rookies and guys from last year, Rondale Moore, Nico Collins, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Drake London, Chris Olave, Christian Watson, David Bell, Treylon Burks. I know Nico is the odd one on this list, but I want y'all to give me your immediate thoughts on him, and then I'll counter if you don't like him.
How much volume do you see in Houston?
In Houston?
Yeah. How much viable volume do you see coming from Davis Mills to support Brandon Cooks, Nico Collins, Brevin Jordan, and a running back?
Let me just clarify. Nico Collins was a nothing last year, and I have him as a breakout as a wide receiver 4 or 5 in Dynasty.
Okay. Breakout, wide receiver 4 or 5 is the breakout?
Yeah.
So his long-term ceiling is what, wide receiver 3?
Probably, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess that's fine.
I'll just say this on Nico. I'll take it.
That's
unless
not,
you have something to say, Jorge.
Yeah,
I think we both wanted something sexier out of that.
Yeah, when you were this breakout, I was like, We're going 2, we're going 3, 4, 5. I'm like,
So here's the deal. You got Brandon Cooks. He's going to be the number 1 target in that offense this year, as long as he doesn't turn his head into a bowl of scrambled eggs at some point. And eventually when that happens, he's out. Then you have John Mechie, who is my least favorite wide receiver to come out of Alabama in the last 4 years, but he's still good.
Technician, though. He's still a technician.
He and Nico Collins are not going to even impact each other at all on the offense, whether it be targets or positional play. And so right now, John Mechie is behind Brandon Cooks, right? They're interlocked in terms of the depth chart. Nico Collins is the only X on that team right now. That is it. He's going to be on the field every single snap. The thing is that they're going to spread the ball around. You got Davis Mills, who's going into year 2, looked great last year. But I agree. You got Brevin Jordan. You got Brandon Cooks. You got John Mechie kind of filtered in here and there. But I think Nico is right there as the number 3 target on that offense and might have weeks where he's the number 2 guy. I'm a lot higher on him than the general dynasty community is, but I love his talent. And I think that he might end up being a better wide receiver in the NFL than in fantasy long term. But if you're taking a late flyer on a guy in dynasty, if you want to trade low on somebody, Nico is a great stash. And that's why I put him on this list.
Man,
moving on.
That was a long love letter to Nico Collins.
I think he's a super talented and super underrated.
You should tweet at him and see if you can get him on your show. You know, he may have some free time.
Like, oh my gosh, somebody cares about me. All right. Who do you guys like out of this list if you had to put your name behind one of these players?
The Sun God. You don't go against the deity.
Yeah, right? You're not worried about Jameson Williams, the most talented.
No, I think those guys. That was actually the great compliment. I look at Jameson Williams as being the perfect compliment.
I agree.
This is a guy that's going to take people deep. He can get all those deep crossers, those outsides, those deep dig routes, and let Amon-Ra just work over the middle of the field. I think if anything, Amon-Ra is going to be sucking touches away from Hockenson more than he's going to be, worried about competing with Jameson Williams. They work in different areas of the field. Amon-Ra is already shown to being the guy for Jared Goff that Cooper Kupp was for him early in his career.
Oh, yeah.
And take the targets. Give me the Sun God.
Absolutely. I mean, when targeted by Jared Goff, Goff had 107 NFL quarterback rating. I mean, like, Goff is going to go with the guy that he feels comfortable with, and it's going to take time for Williams to acclimate. And let's not forget about DJ Chark, but I have already because I think everybody else has at this point after he signed with the Lions. Yeah, I'm all about Amon-Ra. I'm not off the train yet.
The biggest thing for Amon-Ra that I think if you're playing Dynasty, you need to just shut this narrative out. This whole like Amon-Ra is going to get supplanted by Jameson Williams thing. If that happens, it's going to be a couple years. Jameson is incredibly talented. He's an electric athlete. He's probably one of the 4 most athletic specimens in this class in terms of just pure explosiveness. But the dude blew his knee up, and he hasn't had a good recovery from that, apparently. And he's a rookie, and he's playing with Jared Goff. I saw you make a face there, but
he's ahead of schedule. He's actually ahead of schedule. He's already been walking and running, and he's been starting.
I thought the news
frowning at press conferences.
Interesting. I thought the news.
Yeah, no, he's ahead of schedule. No, it's positive news. Yeah, positive news on him. He's fine.
Ignore everything I just said.
He came out and actually said that he thinks he'll be ready for week 1. Now that's kind of BS. That's players speak nonsense. I don't expect to see him until after week 6. I would assume they're going to pup him. And that's why DJ Chark is there. Chark will be in that spot, and then Jameson Williams will come in, supplant Chark, because as much as Chark is fast and big and he can do a bunch of things, he's kind of a numbskull, and he just doesn't get himself in the right places at the right time. Jameson Williams has zero trouble with that.
So I guess I'll rephrase then what I was saying, because that's great. Thank you for that info. I was misinformed on that. Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams complement each other. Jeff already said that. Amon-Ra St. Brown is already established in the NFL, and he was not a fluke last year. The only thing about last year that you're not going to get from him again was that 8-game stretch where he was literally the only target on the offense. So he's not going to average like 11 targets a game this season.
Hockenson and Swift aren't going to get hurt again?
I'm not saying they won't, but to expect that 8-game stretch to be the prevailing outlook for Amon-Ra is ridiculous. I bet you that he gets somewhere around on average 7 or 8 targets a game, which is
like beautiful.
That's
as long as they're efficient targets, then it really doesn't matter. Right?
Yeah, and that's all
I don't mind 7 or 8 Jared Goff targets, because here's the thing: Jared Goff is not a world beater. He's not a great quarterback, but you know what he is? He's accurate enough. If I've got 8 passes coming from Jared Goff, 6 of them are catchable.
Yeah,
and I feel good about that.
And then you get Amon-Ra with this like weekly stat line on average of probably like 6 or 7 for 70. All of a sudden, that's a wide receiver too. That's exactly what you think he is, and everyone's freaking out about Jameis Williams. Just don't. Anyway, moving on. The other guy that Jeff and I had talked about, and I just want to make some comments here, is Treylon Burks. He's raw. Everyone's in love with him in Dynasty because they think he's A.J. Brown. AJ Brown was not AJ Brown when he came into the league. Treylon Burks is not going to be the Treylon Burks that you like 3 years from now in year one, and they might not even have the same quarterback. So I am so much lower on him than the Dynasty community, but also like people seem to have forgotten about Robert Woods.
Thank you.
Like, why is no one talking about the best receiver on that team right now? Like, I don't
probably
get
the 30 years old and something about an ACL or something.
I know, but like, whatever.
He can still ball. He's not going to be the Olympic burner that he was. He was the wide receiver that was. I want to say it was Team USA. I think.
Wasn't that Marquise Goodwin?
Oh, that was a good one. Sorry, yeah,
that was good.
Wrong Bills wide receiver.
No, what's his technician? He's not like the fastest guy.
Yeah, the ACL doesn't impact his game. He doesn't win on raw speed. He wins on just running really crisp, great routes and staying in front of the quarterback and scramble drills and when things break down. And so, he really shined with the Rams because there was so many other people around where it was easier for him to get open. And guys like Goff and then Stafford were able to, easily find him. Tannehill's not a dummy. He's not great, but he'll be able to find Robert Woods. I mean, Bobby Trees, as I like to call him.
Oh, sure.
He'll be a factor. I'm not too worried about all that.
I mean, you look at what Tannehill did in the playoff game when he was just like forcing every single ball. Robert Woods is the wide receiver he wishes he was forcing the ball to in that playoff game.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, you get these loaded boxes. They're going to be playing for you, Derrick Henry, while he's healthy, if he stays healthy this year. And in the meantime, Robert Woods is probably getting single coverage, and he's good enough at running routes to get open. He's going to be the guy this year in Tennessee. I swear. I'm banking on that. I'll put my money on it. It's not going to be Treylon Burks. Anything else you guys want to bring up here from the wide receiver list?
A lot of people like to draw the comparisons of, Aaron Rodgers is going to make any wide receiver the best wide receiver known to mankind. Hey, Devontae Adams wasn't Devontae Adams when he came into the NFL. He was Mr. Drops the ball a lot, may get cut after a couple seasons. And then all of a sudden, him and Jordy Nelson had a great top 10 finish for both of them. And, we've all seen what's happened after that. I think people need to pump the brakes on Christian Watson. I'm not saying it's not the realm of possibility that he becomes a great wide receiver with Aaron Rodgers, but right off the bat, not so much, I think.
He's going to get really good right by about the time that Aaron Rodgers retires. You preaching to the choir here. The Gridiron Ratings entire team is like, Christian Watson, blah.
Nice.
And we've all said if we're wrong about him, so be it. I mean, that's like a consensus opinion in our Discord chats.
Nice.
All right, last one here. We got a final comment on Reddit. Hollywood Brown. This isn't a sneaky thing, but he sent the comment in, so I just want to bring it up. Teamed up with his college quarterback, no Hopkins, for the first 6 weeks. They traded a first for him, which means they're probably going to sign him to a longer deal. It's from BRC or by Ricey, Bryce.
Bryce.
I just got that too.
Watching Ronnie sound out this guy's name because of the hype. Fodder for sure.
Today, Junior. All right. Yeah. Totally agree with this comment. I mean, Hollywood's great. You guys have anything to add on Hollywood?
I mean, we didn't see the translation from college to the pros because of where he went in Baltimore. I think his familiarity with Kyler Murray and his their time together at Oklahoma, it's gonna come out. And like you said, no DeAndre Hopkins for the first, was it 6 or 7 games? I don't know how long the suspension is for. Something like that. Yeah, definitely 6 games. There we go. Definitely enough time to see some chemistry built. And in fact, I think the day after they traded for Hollywood Brown, there was like a video of like him and Kyler Murray throwing the ball already getting in sync. So I agree. You should expect good things here.
I love when professional athletes play catch in shorts.
I know.
That's usually how I know they've got chemistry and how they're about to ball out.
Exactly.
That's why every single player for the Denver Broncos is about to be elite because they played football.
Every single one. Every single one.
Is it too soon for a Jerry Judy comment? Or
it's never too soon.
We should actually say that. Hey, real quick, if you haven't read the news, the Jerry Judy thing is nothing. Don't be worried about that.
That's good.
I think the thing I sent you yesterday, Jeff, was he told the prosecutors, he was like, yeah, I took her baby formula and wallet and locked it in my car. And then she this morning was like, don't press charges. I didn't mean for him to get arrested. I just wanted them to monitor the situation. So
really?
He's already back with the Broncos. Like, It's a non-starter.
That's a weird series of statements to put together, though. Like, why did she want them to monitor the situation? Did she feel like she was in danger?
And he's a big, scary professional athlete.
He's not big.
Her is.
If he was in a room with the three of us, he might be the smallest guy in the room.
He's huge. He's giant. No, I'm just kidding. You're right. Anyway, so that's kind of the run through here. Again, Aaron C. Where are you?
Where are you? Come, dude,
I'm right here.
I'm trying to FedEx you this jersey. I'm trying to send it like priority FedEx. Let's 2 days this thing to you.
You have until Friday at 11:59 p.m. to hit us up on Twitter, and if you do not, you're not getting the jersey.
Then we're gonna draw somebody else, and there was a lot of other people.
Kadarius Toney.
I mean, he'll be wearing a different jersey at some point.
I just want him to wear it in one of his rap videos. That's just me.
Good.
No, we'll give it to somebody on Reddit. So if you're on Reddit and you commented on the last few videos, say a prayer. Hope this guy doesn't watch this, and maybe you'll get it.
Nice.
Any closing thoughts, Jorge? It's been great having you on. This was really fun.
I'm so glad that Gary put us together in our chat the other day. It's been great talking shop with you guys. We definitely have to do it again. I know we've talked about having you on a couple of our pods. Can't wait to get you on the Dynasty pod and our IDP pod. And just thank you very much for having me. It's been great talking shop with you. It's great hearing your opinions. We are going to have a jersey off. I figured this out, Jeff. If Zaven Collins outproduces Nick Vigil this year, I will get you a Zaven Collins jersey, and then vice versa.
Nick Vigil for
the wall.
Gotta find a Nick Vigil jersey.
Auction.
Say what?
You should do autograph from Pristine Auction because it'll be cheaper than the actual NFL jersey.
I don't think they'll have a Nick Vigil jersey.
Ye of little faith.
You can just sign it yourself, Jeff, and just tell us.
Wait, hang on. I'll tell you what. I'll log into Pristine Auction right now, and let's take a look. Let's see if there's any Nick Vigil gear.
All right, and hey, while Jeff's doing that, again, we've got Nathan Janke from PFF coming on, John Macri from PFF, Gary Davenport, Football Guys and IDP Sharks. We've got Nate. How do you say his last name?
Markham.
Nate Markham from. I don't know why I was thinking it was McCullum. Markham from the
Fantasy and Frames.
Fantasy and Frames. I almost said FTN. Totally different company. Fantasy and Frames. Both of you guys. Hopefully, we'll get you back on here again, George. Or Jorge.
Love it.
When Nick comes on. It's getting late. I'm not saying things correctly. So let's go ahead and wrap this show up. Final thoughts, Jeff, on Jarvis Landry going to the Saints.
Doesn't matter as much as people think it does. It probably hurts Kamara more than it hurts the other receivers.
Cool. Final thoughts, Jorge, on Joe Burrow's ceiling this year.
He did really, really well last year. He is not Joe Montana yet. Let's pump the brakes. I think he's going to be a lot more of an efficient passer, but let's not think that I think he's going to be more efficient. Yes. I love the Joe Montana figure right there. He's going to be efficient. I don't know if his numbers are going to be as high.
All right. Well, and final thoughts from me, Ronnie, like this video, subscribe, hop back in when we get all these other experts on. Go and follow Fantasy and Frames on Twitter. It's literally that, at that, Fantasy and Frames. You can follow me at Ronnie A. Evans. Let me just go ahead and remove this so you can see it. It's right there. I'm also user Mr. Football _football on Reddit. Jeff's at NFL _D Mateo. Jorge B. Edwards on Twitter. Give us a follow. I'm on there now every day because I decided to use Twitter again and like shooting questions out to experts just to see what they say. So if you want insight, I'll be providing that via other people. And that's all we got. We'll be back again next Saturday. And it's been great doing the show. Let's throw up this little, let's see if I can pull this thing up. I'm going to keep talking while I'm doing it so I can fill time.
It's like the longest outro ever.
How's everyone doing?
I'm going to, JJ, if you're still watching, can you please teach Ronnie how to do an outro?
See y'all later. Is it even going to play? What's even going on?
Who we are, where we're coming. No idea where we are, who we are, where we're coming from, or who we are, where we're coming from, or who we are, where we're coming from, or who we are, where we're coming from. And best of the best. Wow. That is football.
Also, by the way, that's Swum. The artist is Swum. Go hit up Swum on Twitter. He's the best. All right, thanks. It's been great. See y'all next week.